So you want to buy a MazdaSpeed 3, one of the world's, probably one of the best hot hatches ever made, but also can be a bit of a meticulous issue. Today we're going to be going over everything you need to know before buying one of these cars, the ultimate buyer's guide, so you can pick out the right MazdaSpeed 3 for you. I have owned 4 MazdaSpeed 3s, 2 first gens and 2 second gen MazdaSpeed 3s. First gen's my favorite, by the way. So I've bought multiple of these and I kind of know what to look for when I'm going through them to finding a good match. Now 3 out of 4 have been good purchases for me. I had one that was a bit of an issue and I will list, of course, all of those in today's video. So today we're going to go over everything from the engine bay to the outside of the car to underneath the car and inside the car that you need to look out for when you're purchasing a MazdaSpeed 3, whether it's first or second gen. With that being said, I do sell Mazda themed shirts and stickers. I'll leave that up in the top right for you guys to click on and check out to support the channel in case you get a little MazdaSpeed for yourself. Other than that, so the MazdaSpeed 3 came in multiple different packages, but it was made in 2007 to 2013. There was bows, you know, all this different stuff, whatever. It makes 263 horsepower and it makes 280 foot-pounds of torque. It takes 91 plus premium. So there's a few little statistics that we can start off with. Before we even look at any of the common issues and things you need to look out for, here's a list of things that you need to make sure happen before you go see the car. Things are mandatory before looking at a MazdaSpeed 3. We're gonna start with that it's been sitting overnight. So all oil pressures and everything have to be at the lowest number. Everything needs to be cold. You are going to want a cold start. And if the buyer doesn't want you to, then there's something up with the car. You must have maintenance records or a valid reason not to have them, but it is recommended. Please do not skip out on the maintenance records. Have some sort of proof that things have been done, that this car was regularly maintained with good oil and all that stuff. The car must have been run on 91 octane or anything more. Even if the buyer says they ran 87 to get somewhere, that is not a good sign of a good owner on a MazdaSpeed 3. Cars needs good owners. There's no excuses because you're just gonna have to deal with those problems. 91 only, and you know, not Costco gas. Don't put Costco gas in your MazdaSpeed 3, dude. Ask what oil and filter has been used. There's different oil specifications for these cars. Like we prefer, you know, certain weights and stuff like that. If they're using like a 540, then they might have a smoking turbo issue or kind of an oil loss issue. So it's always good to ask those questions. These cars came with 5W30 from factory. So if you're running a thicker oil, make sure to ask the question why, or just find out what brand they're using and obviously what oil filter they're using. And the last question you're going to want to ask or just find out, has it been modified? If so, doesn't have high pressure fuel pump internals and hasn't been tuned. If they're running a big intake without internals and no tune, or they're running a bunch of parts with the wrong tune or a Cobb OTS tune, then it's probably going to be a red flag. But now that we've gotten all those mandatory issues out of the way, let's go ahead and dig deep into the MazdaSpeed 3 and find out what really could be wrong with it. I'm not even gonna lie, guys. The engine bay is the worst part. There's a lot of things that could go wrong in here, so that's where we're gonna start, and that's probably why you're here. Just look at it. It looks like there's a lot that could go wrong in here, hey? Or is that just me? Maybe I've just been on this platform long enough. Let's see. Let's see what we got. I got a whole list of things here to go. Okay, so you're gonna want a compression test. That's mandatory. If they don't want to do a compression test because it takes too long to do it, then they're not gonna get their car sold, and I don't think you should buy it. Even if you can do like a leak down test as well, it tells you a lot about the car. Your compression numbers need to be within each other. Some bad compression numbers on cylinder 4 and 3 are common. Next one is over here, the VVT chain and the actuator. I'm sure you've heard of this issue, and it's very common. I believe on the 2012s and the 13s, it was fixed officially from Mazda, but don't take my word for that. I don't know if that's true. This is where the cold start's going to come in handy. You can cold start the car and you'll hear a very obnoxious sound from the engine bay that'll last between a second and 5 seconds. If you hear that sound, that job needs to be done. Parts alone are over $1,000. So I think you're looking at, I think it's about like $1,000 to $1,500 job, including parts. So it's not cheap. And if they haven't been wanting to do it and they're selling it because of that, then that's probably a telltale sign that there's other things wrong with the car that you should probably look at. VVT chain, no bueno. cold start it. A vibrating clutch can mean that one of your rods is bent. When the car's idling, just hold in the clutch, and if your clutch pedal vibrates, then there might be a bent rod. I've never heard of this, but apparently this is a thing. It's always good to know that there might be other things wrong with the car. Smoking turbo, again, this is where we're gonna kind of like, we want everything to be like, you know, not rad. So smoking turbo or just a bad turbo, a really easy way to find this out is have the car kind of idle for 10 minutes. Also, if you're test driving the car, having a friend drive behind you, there can be telltale signs that you're burning oil, probably through your turbocharger with blue smoke coming out. Obviously, a cold start can tell you that as well if there's blue smoke coming out of the exhaust. During a cold start, during idling for over 10 minutes, just driving behind the car can tell you that there's a smoking turbo, which just means there's a bad turbo and it needs to be replaced. A turbocharger around on these cars kind of lasts around 150,000 kilometers. Sorry, I'm Canadian, not American. I'll put exchange. No, I'll put your miles on the screen. I'd kind of give that like the safe number. Another way to tell if the turbo is gonna kind of be bad or not is ask the driver how they've driven it. When do you get into boost and how do you kind of drive the car? You shouldn't really rag on it under 3,000 RPM. That's kind of like the spool point for these. So if they're like, yeah, you know, I go wide open throttle at 2,000 or 25 RPM, then that's not a good, it's not a good sign for anything at all. That's not good. You can't bog it. That's bad. That's no good. So injector seals and carbon buildup is another thing you can't really tell. That's kind of like, again, you have to ask the owner and ask if they've done that. You're gonna find a lot of like over 200,000 kilometer speeds that haven't done the injector seals or injectors, but you should probably do it. I don't think it's a recommended Mazda maintenance thing, so I think a lot of people skip over that, but the injectors can go bad. There's a lot of carbon buildup going on from the EGR and everything else, so if those haven't been done, then that's, you know, a good way to kind of knock the price off, especially if you're a little bit higher kilometers, because, you know, it's going to be pretty dirty in there, and I just recommend doing all that. Again, not too expensive job, but very tedious. But it's just another telltale sign that the car has been taken well care of. I don't think this has gotten it. It's got like 170,000 kilometers on it. Am I a bad owner? And the last thing, while we're kind of looking at the engine bay here, the motor mounts are garbage. I'm not gonna lie. These motor mounts are the same, except the transmission motor mount. So the rear motor mount and the transmission motor mount are the same from a Mazda 3. This car makes 280 foot-pounds of torque, 263 horsepower. You know how much torque is moving? The Mazda 3 makes 148 horsepower. Why would they use the same motor mounts? Anyways, hydraulic. These blow up. There's big spray, yellow spray. It looks like coolant or something yellow or like pee. The motor mount's probably blown up, but if it's old, it's probably just trash anyway. I'm gonna be replacing mine soon because it's just garbage. The rear motor mounts, I mean, it is what it is. And the transmission motor mounts, I've heard of those breaking, just in case, because you don't want your engine to go, okay, that's engine bay. I'm glad we're done here. Look for oil consumption. Look for oil leaks. I don't know. That's kind of like the main things. There's things that go wrong, like your thermostat's kind of like, it'll probably go at like 160,000 kilometers. Make sure your spark plugs were done. I do the spark plugs in these like quite often. That's a good one. Maintenance records, if they haven't done all this stuff past like 120,000 kilometers, you should probably not buy the car, to be honest. It's probably going to be a pile. So the transmissions down here, the transmissions had a couple quirky features. Second gear pop out, I think third gear pop out as well. You can also lose gears in these cars. Not as common, but the pop out thing is more common. I had that actually on one of my first gen Mazda 3s. Your clutch, these stock clutches are actually really good. I've seen multiple FBO cars with stock clutches push over 100,000 kilometers, obviously depending on your driver, but obviously some won't last as long, so I double check the clutch. But that second gear pop out is very common. It mostly happens on deceleration, so do a couple pulls, get the car warm, and make sure to decel in second gear, third gear, row through the gears and see if it's going to pop out or not. If it is, then I need a new transmission. And I'll tell you right now, these transmissions suck. That's a really good negotiated feature on these because clutch jobs aren't cheap. So if it needs a clutch or a transmission, that's not an owner issue technically. It's just, you know, Mazda kind of messed up. I think we're done with the engine bay. I'm quite impressed because we didn't spend a lot of time in there. So let's move on. A couple extras on the transmissions that I actually forgot. The slave cylinder on the transmission can be known to fail if you don't have an OEM one if they are replaced with aftermarkets. If the OEM one fails and they're replaced with aftermarkets, so FYI. And then the I think it's a master cylinder, the one that connects to the pedal. I've heard these can leak. That's a telltale sign. If the carpet's kind of wet underneath the pedal, it'll kind of leak into the cabin. So it's worth taking a look underneath the dash and just kind of seeing if you know, anything needs to be kind of replaced under there. So my general suspension rule with these cars is 120,000 kilometers, everything should have been replaced. If it's not, it's probably old and you're lucky it's not making sounds, because it definitely should have been replaced. Actually, I have that one here. That's 75,000 miles. The suspension bushings and everything should have been replaced. Overall, the suspension in this car is really good. Nothing really breaks. The only really bad thing is the rear springs can get rusty, and I've actually have seen rear springs break in half. You won't notice it. It might make some sounds, but other than that, they kind of operate like normal. But anyways, they'll get rusty and they'll snap. Just have a look underneath the car from the back. You can see where the rear control arm just holds the spring in place. You can kind of see if it's rusty or not. Other than that, maintenance records are very important. Like I was saying, the suspension needs to be redone. You know, at that point, you got your front end links, which is really common to be one of the first things that go. Those might need to be replaced more often. You have your front control arm bushings. You have your tie rod ends. Obviously the ball joints on the control arms. You have your strut top mounts, so if you turn your wheel and it's creaking, your strut top mounts might be worn. If you're turning and it snaps, feels like it snaps at a certain point, your ball joints are probably shot. If it's making sounds, it needs to be replaced. Your sway bar bushings are more common on these, I think. Anyways, I just did a front rebuild for this. It was like $300, $350 Canadian, but it's a good negotiating factor. I got a deal on one of my first gens because it had very obnoxious front suspension sound, and that's how I found out front sway bar bushings do need to be replaced more often. Does that make a weird sound? MazdaSpeed. MazdaSpeed 3. Yeah, other than that, oh, this one's good. So this one's actually really good on the Mazda 3 and MazdaSpeed 3 platform in the back of the car. So there is the wheel, and then there's like an arm that goes over, it goes that way. It's called your rear trailing arm bushing. These don't get done, and they go bad. They don't normally make sound, but they do tear out of the arm. It's kind of funny. Anyways, these don't get done. They're really expensive jobs. For some reason, Mazda has a big hour on them. So the bushing itself is really cheap, but the job doesn't get done because it's like, I think it's some stupid like 6 or 4 or 6, 8 hours. Like it's bad. You do it yourself. They'll get denied. They'll literally get denied. Any Mazda 3 or MazdaSpeed 3 buy probably hasn't had them done. I'd say the safe number for those is like probably like 150,000 kilometers. If they haven't been done, knock a few grand off your MazdaSpeed 3 because they need to be done. You should probably do it. That's suspension. Pretty good. Rebuild it. Have maintenance records. Now for the body of the car, the second gen's actually really good, and to be honest, I don't have anything on this car that I want to note out. On the first gens, and this might be the same for the second gens, but on the first gens you need to just look out for rust. So you might find rust around this area on the front fenders. Of course, the common one that you've probably heard of is the rear fenders. It can start here, it can work all the way around here, and this part can be so eaten out. So you need to kind of look behind the side skirt on the first gens because that could be a really big issue. Once it starts, it'll grow really bad. So this whole fender arch will be quite rusty. If we continue onto the back, another common spot is kind of rust right here. It'll rust around the badges. You can get some rust kind of in the mounting points, kind of around here, especially on the hatch. And I think that's mostly the body. Like I said, these don't really have any like really big issues on the Mazda 3 platform, especially like I said for the second gen. So I think you kind of get away with not needing to really worry about that on these cars. And now for the inside, like I said, I don't really have anything. The inside is pretty mint on these cars. With the second gens, I find the plastics just a little bit more brittle in here. If you ever decide to take anything out, you'll probably snap it, to be honest, because I have multiple times. The steering wheels will get, you know, pretty fadey and kind of gross and stuff. I've heard with second gen MazdaSpeed 3s that the factory Bose amp in the back decides to fail. I don't know how true that is, but other than that, there's nothing really in here that is worth mentioning. Like, oh no, my leather is a little weird and chopped up. Oh, here's actually no, this one's good. So these pedals on the MazdaSpeed 3s, the clutch pedals, actually snap in half. I can't really see up there. I should probably get a flashlight up there and check mine. If you have a rustier car, you guys should probably check that. There's like some welds in there. It's not a good job. It's not fun. So guys, that's kind of it. I think I've gone through everything that I really want you to look for when you're buying a MazdaSpeed 3. Anybody with experience or that has bought one yourself, please put down in the comments below if I missed anything, any tips or tricks that you might know, whether it's first gen or second gen. Help everybody out. We are a great community here, and I hope that you find your dream MazdaSpeed 3. And if this video helps you with buying your MazdaSpeed 3, let me know what you bought, what year, how many kilometers, what color, and what kind of specs, if it has any mods or anything. I'm interested to know what you bought for yourself. Other than that, guys, if you enjoy MazdaSpeed 3 content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and other than that, keep it real. I'll see y'all in the next one.